Imagine walking into a system invisible to most, yet powerful enough to shape your entire life, a system where what seems like opportunity is actually a carefully constructed chain, a mechanism designed not for your benefit, but to extract wealth continuously while keeping you dependent. From the moment you first hear about loans, credit, or financing, the idea is sold as freedom. Borrow now, enjoy now, pay later. It sounds harmless, even promising. But beneath that promise lies a centuries-old architecture, a system meticulously engineered to make debt a permanent feature of human existence. Debt, in its simplest form, is a promise. You take something today, agree to return it with more tomorrow. Yet that more is the key. Interest transforms simple borrowing into a mechanism of control, where the passage of time itself becomes profitable for those who lend, and burdensome for those who owe. History is filled with experiments in managing this dynamic. Welcome to Financial Creditor, where the hidden rules of money come to light. In early civilizations, debt was tied to social stability. Leaders understood that if people were overburdened, society itself could collapse. In Mesopotamia, records show debts written on clay tablets, but rulers often erased obligations to prevent widespread suffering. Ancient leaders across cultures, from Babylon to Egypt, recognized that too much indebtedness was dangerous. Forgiveness and resets were embedded into the system. Debt was temporary, a tool, not a trap. But, as societies evolved, so did the ambitions of those controlling capital. By the medieval period, lending began to accumulate layers of complexity. Religion sought to regulate usury, but merchants and financiers discovered ways to work around prohibitions. Loans were disguised, contracts crafted, and the principle of charging interest survived. Slowly, debt shifted from a temporary necessity to an instrument of power, able to influence kings, cities, and eventually nations. The transformation became especially clear with the rise of state financing. When governments needed resources beyond their immediate means, often for wars or infrastructure, they turned to the public for funding through bonds. Investors could lend to the state, earning interest, and the cycle expanded. Governments could act beyond their treasury, and financiers gained influence proportional to the capital they controlled. The creation of central banks formalized this relationship. States no longer borrowed only in emergencies. Borrowing became an ongoing process, a permanent feature of governance. Banks, in turn, became indispensable intermediaries, managing debt and extracting profit at every turn. What was once a temporary arrangement became the backbone of power. Ordinary people were gradually drawn into the system. The Industrial Revolution created opportunities for mass employment and consumption, but much of this economic expansion was funded through credit. Companies borrowed to build factories and railroads, governments borrowed to fund public works, and workers borrowed to buy homes and tools. Debt penetrated every layer of society, embedding the expectation that borrowing was normal. By the 20th century, debt had become more than a tool for governments or elite financiers. It was a product marketed to the public, wrapped in the promise of aspiration and social mobility. Mortgages, car loans, installment plans, and credit cards transformed debt into a mechanism for everyday life. The genius or cruelty of this system is in its design. Debt does not simply transfer money once. It generates continuous profit. Each repayment, each interest payment, funnels resources upward, from the many to the few, creating streams of revenue that compound over years. Houses, cars, education, and everyday purchases become vehicles for this wealth transfer. Debt locks individuals into long-term obligations, often far exceeding the original value borrowed. What begins as a promise quickly becomes a structure from which escape is difficult, a chain invisible but unyielding. The same principle applied to nations. When countries borrow to fund projects or emergencies, the repayment plus interest binds them to lenders. Failure to meet obligations can mean loss of sovereignty, forced policy adjustments, or austerity imposed by external authorities. Through the 20th century, International financial institutions codified these mechanisms. Loans came with conditions. Restructuring often meant ceding control over budgets and policies, and nations learned that borrowing came with strings attached. At the same time, domestic systems normalized debt for citizens. Owning a home, funding education, even basic consumption became intertwined with credit. The psychological shift was profound. Debt became invisible, normalized, and even desirable. Borrowing was framed as ambition, responsibility, or foresight. The very structure of society began to revolve around continuous borrowing, ensuring that money would always flow upward to those in control, while ordinary individuals remained dependent. Financial crises throughout history only reinforced this pattern. The crashes of 1929 and 2008, though separated by decades, shared a common logic. Debt was overextended, obligations could not be met, ordinary people bore the brunt of the fallout, yet institutions survived, often stronger than before, because the system was engineered to absorb shocks in ways that benefited creditors. Every collapse became a lesson in resilience for the financial elite, not a punishment. Even modern developments continue this evolution. Central banks, digital finance, and algorithm-driven lending have increased efficiency for creditors while reducing autonomy for borrowers. Debt is now programmable, monitored, and enforceable in real time. Each innovation enhances the profitability of debt, while maintaining or increasing the dependence of those who owe. Understanding this reveals a disquieting truth. Debt is not neutral. It is not simply a tool to enable progress. It has been deliberately cultivated as a profit engine, a mechanism to transfer resources, influence behavior, and consolidate wealth over time. Individuals and nations alike are part of a cycle designed to ensure that the few who control the creation and distribution of money gain continuously, while the majority participate in a system that extracts value from them in perpetuity. The lessons of history are clear. Debt is a powerful instrument, capable of shaping societies, influencing governments, and controlling populations. Yet, because it is framed as normal, necessary, and even beneficial, its role as a tool of control is largely invisible. The architecture is subtle, but the consequences are enormous. Freedom is often defined not by wealth, but by minimizing dependence on debt. Questioning the assumptions of borrowing, recognizing the true costs, and understanding the historical evolution of financial systems are essential steps toward agency. From clay tablets to digital contracts, from medieval trade to modern mortgages, the pattern is unmistakable. Debt enriches the creditor, constrains the debtor, and structures society to favor those with the power to issue credit. The trap is not a coincidence. It was designed, engineered, and refined over millennia, embedding dependence into economic and social life. And the most remarkable aspect is that it works invisibly. Debt is everywhere, but rarely seen for what it is, a system engineered to extract profit continuously while maintaining the illusion of opportunity. To recognize this is not pessimism, it is awareness. Only by understanding the design of debt can individuals begin to navigate it, mitigate its control, and reclaim agency in a system built to ensure that the flow of wealth moves upward, while dependence spreads downward. Debt didn't trap you by accident. It was designed this way, and the power it exerts is both historical and ongoing, shaping lives, societies, and nations with quiet inevitability. The question is no longer whether debt exists, but who designed it, who benefits from it, and how each of us will choose to navigate a world built on obligation, promise, and interest. Understanding this system is not just finance, it is the key to understanding freedom itself. If this gave you a fresh perspective, hit subscribe. History holds the answers, and I'll show you where to find them.